have hundreds of cases where people get refused visa, and for people who've been in the UK before. So it sounds like the policy is just refuse, and that's the problem. Is even if you work full time, it's still going to be refused if their parents have been here before as well as visitors. So it's right, like people are reacting to UK and trying to come up with a policy which is sure they're tough. It's not really about fairness. So I don't know whether this is going to continue, because all the debate we have about elections, everybody wants to appear as tough on immigration. So is there any sense? Do you think the party is going to look at this in more fair way, and which is I don't see in any of the parts?
Well, we've talked about wanting a firm but fair immigration system. So I agree that we ought to know who's coming in and out of the country. But people who are settled in the UK and have family overseas have as much right to see their family as other people do, and we ought to be trying to facilitate that, not least because quite often if people come to visit their family here, they're spending money in the British economy, they're here as tourists, and if they haven't got their own money to spend, the people they're coming to visit will be taking them out and about and showing them the sights and spending money in that way. And it's one of the issues that I've seen as a shadow foreign minister as well is the difficulty students are having coming to study here now, which our universities would not exist without overseas students, not least because they pay more money than other things. So this need is because the Conservatives talked about this arbitrary cap on immigration without looking at the fact it's real people involved, real people's lives, and actually quite often it's people who make a contribution to this country. They've not got anywhere meeting that cap, but still the way the policy functions is completely arbitrary, and it's unfair on a lot of people as a result.
Claire Scott.
Well, Kerry, you can say that there's, we've been unfair on student visas, but the problem was that there were a lot of bogus colleges who were giving out visas, and that's wrong for the genuine people. And there has been abuse of student visas, and I'm not going to say that there hasn't. I mean, we've all seen it. But what I am going to say is that yes, there has to be some sort of control on immigration, but I'm going to say that it's not just about talking tough or anything. It is actually protecting communities like yourselves from the issues that we'll hopefully talk about later, which are housing crises, education crises, and employment problems. And so we have got to balance things out. But what I am going to say is that I do find it a little bit offensive that the Labour Party should blame the Tories for bad rhetoric and still make a mug that says they're going to be, that says controls on immigration. Now, I don't know who they aimed that mug at, but it seems utterly bizarre to one, even design a mug that says control immigration, but also very, very strange that anybody in the Labour Party or anyone else would want to purchase a mug like that and drink tea out of it. So I would say, the Tory party are trying to be fair. Yes, there has been a knee-jerk reaction. I'm not going to deny that, and we're reining it back. And I think we're getting to reality. But you know what? We didn't go as far as printing a mug that says we've got to be tough on it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the first comment is about students, actually, because during Coalition, then 700 of those bogus colleges have been closed down. I'm delighted about that, because if you close the bogus things down, then the genuine people can be considered properly. Vince Cable has consistently argued against a cap on proper students coming to here, because again, they bring an enormous amount to our universities. My knee-jerk reaction was to one of the very first things you said, actually, where you said there is a presumption towards refusal. Because I just know that in any public service whatsoever, if you can make a good decision, a fair decision, right at the very beginning, then it's best for everybody concerned. It's actually cost effective. It also reduces stress for the people. So So in a sense, it doesn't really matter whether we're talking about a child in care, whether we're talking about an immigration problem, or whether it's something to do with disability. In fact, if you can make a good decision first time round, then it's the best way of running public services. So I know that's broadened it out a wee bit, but I do think it's very important that we do aim for that sort of standard within our public life.
Of course, you would be offended.
I was offended by that. You're going to share, and I
You-
was disgraced.
It would be fine for you to be offended
Disgusted
with
by that.
Kerry's mugs, but the van that
was
went
my
around
fault.
telling us
They're
that
not
we...
my mugs.
Kerry's party's mug. But the van that went around saying
And
that...
that's what my poster, yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that both the Tories and Labour has it wrong on immigration. And I think that we need to be living in the real world. Immigration helps this country. We've seen a huge amount of businesses flourish with people coming in with work permits, with the specialist trades like chefs, specialist people that have come into this country and really grown this economy. I think that it's wrong to say that that we're at this stage because there's a huge amount of people that are abusing the system. There's a huge amount of people that are actually obeying the system and doing things correct as well. And I think we have to recognise those people again and again, because Britain was built on immigrants. It wasn't built, by itself. And I think that it's important that we realise that. My father came in the 60s, and he was a factory worker, and he worked most of his life in a factory. But even though it was low-skilled, low labour, it was labour-intensive job, he did that, and that's why I'm here today, sitting here talking to my community about politics. He was able to provide the bread and provide the foundation for me to go to school and college. Now, the thing is that the way I see it is that, I've said it before, that we had a lot of things that were wrong up to 2010. There's been compensation from the new government, and it's equally offensive, some of the policies. We're not in government, and I'll tell you what, if you put me in power as an MP for Bristol East, I will be talking about immigration. I'll be talking to it about anybody that's in a coalition, or whether it's a single government, Tory or Labour. I would challenge some of the stuff that we need challenging. And it's pretty simple. That's where we need to be. As a community, there's things that are wrong, and our leaders need to be making them right for us.
Hi, about 6 weeks ago, in The Guardian, one of the newspapers, Ed Miliband did a fantastic interview in which he talked about the fact that he himself, like so many of us here, was the son of an immigrant. He's proud of that. He was also very proud of the welcome that this country gave him. He's also very aware of some of the difficulties that this country gave him and his family. Some of the difficulties which so many of us here have shared, which is feeling glad that we're here and wanting to contribute, but also struggling sometimes with the way these decisions get made. I think what you have is the problem with a parliament that isn't truly diverse, and therefore defaults to a setting which is, if it can find a way to refuse visa applications, as Kerry said, for trivial reasons for particular communities, that it becomes almost ingrained as part of the institutional racism of some certain sections of the immigration system, without even thinking about it. And I think the problem there is we have a creeping Islamophobia in this country. We've also got a creeping set of assumptions about those of us from black and minority ethnic communities, which are often not known by the people who do them. They don't seem to realise what they're doing. They have a knee-jerk reaction to a particular set of applications. So I think having a more diverse parliament, having MPs who understand that, having MPs whose caseworkers understand that, doesn't have to mean it's in your own experience. MPs can understand that without having it in their own experience. But having MPs who truly understand, as the Labour Party always has, that we will always be standing up for the people who are most vulnerable. We'll always be standing up for people who are treated unfairly, is the right thing to do. Also, because it's a waste. It's a waste for applications to be treated like this, so that public servants have to go back and do the same application again, when a good MP like Kerry will send that application back and say, no, you've got to do it again. So I think we need a more diverse parliament. I think there's ways of getting that, but I think we also need to understand that parts of our parliament, parts of our state system on immigration are working with the wider societal assumptions about race, about ethnicity, and about religion. And that needs challenging. So it needs strong MPs who know their cities really well and will do that.
Oh, you agree. Okay. Can I ask one of the ladies to contribute, please?
The question I'm asking is, there's less diversity in the area of the parliament, you keep saying that. If you were in a power, let's say the 8th of I needed a straight answer, not those long ones because I'm gonna get lost when you're talking.
Sorry.
We're all
I want-
getting lost actually. We're all at the end of that.
Yeah, so I want
on the election.
Yeah, so let's see, maybe you'll win or you don't win, I don't know. But what are you gonna do about getting more PME in the House of Parliament? Which is like, far away from us, we could just say hi. That's exactly how we feel. How you can open those doors and how do you understand where I really come from? With a short answer, then I'm gonna get
I think you would agree that when I became councillor in 2005, I think the community really started to engage with politics at that point. From 2005 onwards, we've had lots of candidates from the BME community and specifically the Muslim community. So something was right after 2005. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the credible reason for that, but I would say that there was a lot of people that saw me as an inspiration and as a role model and saw this city as a platform that they could actually be part of the system in. And I'm proud to say that I still do that. Whether I'm an MP or not, I will still continue to advocate good democracy and citizens' active participation within our local democratic process and system. But I think that it would become even more inspiring if I was elected as an MP, and I think that's where we need to be.
Right. You wanted a short answer.
Yeah.
Okay. The short answer is that I think it takes time to change cultures. Role models are hugely important, whether they are head teachers of the local school or BME, whatever it might be. So seeing more people active within the community and in positions of power, authority, that will all help. It takes time.
Can I ask you that? People are really active. They do as much as they can. You can see us here.
Yes.
But yet again, there's a door that we cannot pass it. How are you making it easier? That's my question. Because people are, yes, it's taking the time to change it. We're here, we wanted to change, but if you not let us, we can't go in. So the question is, how you wonderful candidate can you do that?
There are very, very few MPs, to put it bluntly, and therefore it is actually very difficult to get elected as an MP.
I suppose it's getting the candidates or potential
Yes.
thinkers to getting to the stage of becoming parliamentary candidates and then hopefully getting the right environment for people to feel comfortable.
Can I just mention something very quickly to help on that? One of the things that the Liberal Democrats did was they set up a leadership program, and I was involved with that, and that's what inspired me to become a candidate for Bristol East. And it was very simple. You know, they gave us the rules of being an MP, and they gave us some inspiring talks, and they said, come and sit with us and see if you want to be involved. And they gave us the insight into Parliament, and it inspired me. You know, it really did inspire me.
Carrie, what's your take on that?
I think you've got something similar.
I think that's a starting point, but when you look at, I think there were, was it 56 Lib Dem MPs in the current Parliament, 7 of them were women and all of them were white. And in the next Parliament, you know, maybe Abdul will join them. I kind of hope he doesn't, because that means I'm all for diversity and equality, but not quite. But what you'll find with the Democrats, it's looking like they may have one female MP, and again, no ethnic minority MPs, which is not great. And I'm not particularly the problem is, because they leave it to local parties to choose candidates, Labour introduced all women shortlists, which meant that the number of women MPs that we could manage to get selected in either the safe Labour seats or the winnable Labour seats massively increased. And we dropped that in 2001 because there was a court challenge, and it went down. Only 4 new women MPs were selected. We brought them back, we changed the law. And that is why you'll see that Labour has I know Claire will mention that the Tories have a lot of BME and women candidates. By and large, they're not in the winnable seats, particularly BME candidates. We'll have about half a dozen more BME candidates going forward. There's been talk about all black shortlists. It gets a little bit difficult because whereas it's very easy to describe whether someone's male or female in those cases, it gets a bit more tenuous when you start talking about ethnicity. The other thing that I would say though is we need to break down this idea that people from minority backgrounds can only represent minority communities. And that is something that is said to some very, very good black candidates or Asian candidates. It's like, well, there aren't any seats coming up in London or in Birmingham. They should be able to represent everybody everywhere in the same way that I can represent men and people who are from BME communities. So we need to break down that perception as well. Sorry, that was quite long. But you were nodding, so I thought you were with me.
Within your 2 minutes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Claire Scott.
Well, I am going to say that yes, we are the party with more BME candidates standing in this election than any other party. And that means we've selected you on merit. We don't have all-women shortlists. We're certainly not going to go down the line of all-black shortlists, because what does that mean, for goodness sake? And what we are very much about is hearing from everybody, treating everybody equally, and giving everybody opportunity. I am delighted that we've had Sajid Javid as our first Asian Secretary of State. I'm very glad that we've had Saeeda Fazi in the Cabinet, first Muslim woman in the Cabinet. She stepped down for good reason, and I spoke to Saeeda
because Cameron will not agree with it.
I spoke to Saeeda personally, and I'm just saying, and it was her decision. Well, it was her decision, and I spoke to her about it personally. And I supported her, actually. But what I'm going to say is, those people have made it in the Conservative Party. They have got through on their merit. And you know what? It's really important that everybody has a voice. And I've made a real point in this campaign of visiting, the Somali Forum. I've visited Forward. I've supported the Tackling FGM campaigns. Because what I want to do is hear from everybody in this constituency and give everybody a voice. And I'm delighted to see that we've got councillors here from BME backgrounds, we've got candidates here from BME backgrounds. You know, the more people that get involved and the more, you give it a go, the more you're going to get selected. I don't want to see shortlists. I want you all here saying what you want to say on merit. And that's what I think Conservatives are about.
So I've thought about this quite a lot, because one of the things I've noticed is that arguments about merit don't take into account the fact that not everyone starts out at the same starting point. And for a lot of people, and particularly but not only with people from BME backgrounds, partly because we are often, not always, poorer, not always, but also for women, for all sorts of other reasons, we don't always start out from the same starting point. So I have thought about some practical things I want to do, Mona, and I'm really hoping that you might be one of the people who helps get involved with this. I would like to do two things. One, I'm going to have, as I believe most MPs do, Labour MPs would, is a good equal opportunities monitoring system, a fair recruitment system for my staff. But I also want to be more proactive about bringing on the next generation of candidates. By generation, I don't necessarily mean people younger than me either. It might be people a lot older than me or people the same age. It's not about age. So I'm going to be having a mentoring and training programme over the next year to help bring forward the next people who are going to be school governors, council candidates, and possibly the future parliamentary candidates in other forms of elected office. And I have a plan which is to be very proactive about recruitment for people on that scheme, which will be mentoring and training, using community radio stations such as BCFM, Achievement Radio, but also going proactively out to the Somali Forum, Bangladeshi Association, and the mosques, but also the Sikh Association as well, all parts of the BME community, to make sure that anyone who's even thinking about it gets a chance to see what it's about, and gets a chance to be together, to develop some skills, learn how the system works, because we don't all know how the system works. If you don't know how the system works, it's a lot harder to jump into it. I was helped by the Labour Women's Network, and yes, by All Women Shortlist, but it was the Labour Women's Network who helped explain to me how the system worked. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that help. I still get that on my head.
One question.
Can I take from him first?
Are we still on